How exactly did one of the biggest film monopolies around the world slowly become a shell of itself? I'm talking about Hollywood. Can you even remember the last time you went out to see a movie in the theaters? Assuming that the movie theater you last went to is even there at all. Is the movies worth leaving the house for? The age of the movie star is long gone, but how did we get here? It starts with Tim Burton's Batman in 1989. That one movie set off a chain of events that would eventually lead Hollywood to losing its soul. The success of that movie was more than anyone could have hoped for. This movie generated $411 million internationally at the box office combined, on a budget of $35 million. Then there was a fever called Batmania, and for the first time, they sold toys, they sold underwear, they sold burgers. Hollywood got a taste for merchandise for the first time. They made $500 million just from merch alone, making money they've never made before in the box office alone. After this point, it was no longer about making a good movie, but the IP itself and what merchandise the movie could sell. Behind the scenes, before Tim Burton's 1989 movie came out, Warner Brothers had already merged with Time Inc., creating Time Warner. The idea was very simple. The future belonged to the media companies that could completely control both the creation and distribution of intellectual property. At that time, that meant cable, magazines, and television. From then on, studios decided that they would get as many IPs as they could, each one consuming the next. Studio after studio merging with publishers and distributors. As each merger took place, the more in debt these companies took on. With the hopes to make more money on their IP, they not only had to pay off their debt, but the interest on the debt on the companies they merged with. But they could have never have predicted that the well in the VHS and the DVD market would completely dry up, leaving $16 billion that they no longer could count on. Looming in the background for a long time was a small company called Netflix. They were considered to be irrelevant. Studios and their competition literally laughed them out of a room. In the beginning, they were only able to send out DVDs of the movies you wanted to watch by mail. One day, they were able to stream the very films they would be sending to their customers, which turned the laughter from their competition to frustration, as they would be forced to watch the company that they could have bought take away the $16 billion of VHS and DVD market for themselves. There was more misfortune coming towards these studios, as there was a dating app called TuneIn Hookup. It was a video-based dating platform. Its complete and utter failure to get anyone to use this platform as a dating app was the seed that gave birth to YouTube. As not only YouTube and the rest of social media began to mature, the walls started to close in on Hollywood studios, as they simply had no way to keep up with the free content coming out of YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. When the studios saw how much money Netflix was making, they decided we're going to pull the rug from under them. They started rejecting the licenses to show their movies on their platforms, building their own subscription models, putting their biggest hits behind lock and key. The streaming war was in full effect. Just about every platform overnight had a streaming service. Movies all of a sudden could go straight to the streaming platform, letting go of huge profits from licensing their content to other platforms. The way some of the media reports on movies and content from the film industry, you wouldn't be able to separate fact from fiction. Even the biggest flops get reported as profitable. When fans complain about yet another sequel, why is there another reboot no one asked for? Instead of being told that these studios are deep in debt, the fans get shamed being called every name in the book. How is it that the media, when it comes to films, TV shows, and basic film critique, are incapable of telling you the truth? No one says the quiet part out loud. All these media companies are owned by the same company. Jay Penske bought up just about every Hollywood trade publication and most award shows. These outlets are making money from advertising. If they give out brutally honest review, they lose the ability to get interviews, no early access to screeners, and no exclusives. Has all creativity and soul just about dried up in Hollywood? From executives trying to overrule a director's vision with out-of-touch focus groups, they're mortified of losing any revenue, which is why they insist on PG-13 ratings on every movie. They hope to sell more merchandise and get a percentage of an audience that is not guaranteed to even show up. The studio so desperately believes in focus groups that countless movies you went to had the ending go through a reshoot. The original Blade Runner wasn't meant to have a happy ending. Test audiences criticized it for being too slow and too depressing. The focus group just didn't understand the movie. When Ridley Scott finally made a director's cut removing all the studio's interference, it became one of the biggest sci-fi films of all time. Despite being more seasoned, Ridley Scott goes on to make Kingdom of Heaven. Studios demand that they cut 45 minutes off the story so they could get more screens in the theaters in hopes they would make more money. They ended up cutting huge sections that contributed to the story, changing a historical epic into an action movie. When Ridley Scott released his director's cut, all the criticisms of the movie were gone, and it was considered a masterpiece. It didn't used to be this way. For those who are wondering, Hollywood doesn't actually care. Political correctness and DEI is just another part of a checklist where Hollywood studios try to make money from a global audience. The most ironic part of it is that the global audience hates it. International audiences are choosing local films over Hollywood, particularly in Southeast Asia. The United States' share of the global box office has dropped from 62% in 2019 to 54% in 2025. Movies that were made in LA are now made in Georgia or other countries entirely, like Bulgaria or Hungary, with the exchange rate to help out the production. You can afford to hire better local construction crew, stunt team, and even background cast, which you would never be able to come close to in Hollywood. You can already see empty lots that were once full. The talent is leaving. Some are going to entirely different industries or going to work abroad. Others are starting their own companies. Unless Hollywood has a coming to Jesus moment, they'll find that they're slowly being beaten internationally by local film studios. Film equipment is significantly cheaper and way better than ever, from the cameras to the lenses to the lighting and VFX, letting you do more with less. Hollywood studios hasn't learned a single thing since they started the mergers to try and consume and distribute everything. They didn't learn it during the streaming wars, and they still haven't learned their lesson today. They're here to make great movies, and somewhere along the way, they forgot that.